Hello, everybody. My name is Kealani Teofilo, and thank you for joining me in my senior capstone proposal presentation. Today, I'll be talking about flow theory in video games. But before that, I just want to give a brief overview about myself. I received my HiSIT certification in 2019, after which I attended Leeward Community College to receive my associate's degree in liberal arts. I graduated from LCC in 2023 of spring, after which I transferred to UH West Oahu in fall of 2023, and I am a major in creative media with a concentration on video game design and development. So a brief summary of what I'll be going over today. I'm going to go over my thesis statement. I'll also talk about why I researched flow theory in video games. I'll share my plans for the senior capstone project, as well as discuss the significance of my proposed project, namely the benefits of flow in gaming. My thesis statement here. The principles of flow theory are a powerful tool for video game design that will allow the player to fully immerse in and enjoy a game's experience. So, for those of you who don't know, flow is a psychological phenomenon, and I have an abridged description here from Psychology Today. Flow is a cognitive state where one is completely immersed in an activity. It involves intense focus, creative engagement, and the loss of awareness of time and self. So if you've heard of the colloquialism being in the zone, flow is somewhat related to this, as it entails having such an intense focus on a task that you essentially block out anything that doesn't have to do with it. So in video games, flow is commonly achieved by balancing the player's skill against the game's difficulty. So long as a game is not so easy that the player gets bored and not so hard that the player gets frustrated and anxious, then theoretically a player would be perfectly positioned to enter the flow state while playing a video game. Also, there are 8 dimensions that tend to characterize flow activities or activities that can lead to flow, and that includes a challenging activity requiring skill, the merging of action and awareness, clear goals for the player to be able to understand what their objective is, direct immediate feedback for the player's actions in the game. Um, It also includes the concentration on the task at hand, a sense of full control over the player's own actions, a loss of self-consciousness while the player is playing the game, and an altered sense of time. In other words, time flies when you're having fun. So flow activities generally have these 8 dimensions, either all of them or any combination of them. And so these dimensions theoretically lead to a flow state whenever a whenever someone is engaged with an activity. So the reason why I wanted to research flow theory in video games is because it's actually a commonly known concept within the gaming community. For example, among certain gaming communities, especially competitive communities, players seek to enter flow state so that they can improve their skill performance while playing a video game. Game designers also use flow as a means of creating optimally engaging game experiences, since the intense concentration characteristic of flow can help to get a player engaged with a game. So since it's a relatively well-known concept, I wanted to investigate it further and understand it better. So the objective behind my research was to express the role of flow theory principles in video game design, as well as the effect that flow has on the player's experience. So my plans for my senior capstone deliverables are, one, to create a full game design document that demonstrates the intentional design of flow in a video game. And two, I wanted to create a short video game project that I currently envision to be a single player 2D action game that theoretically invokes flow in players. So the significance behind flow in video games is twofold. So one, for players, flow entails an enhanced subjective experience. So when a player is in flow state, they can have more positive emotional experiences such as happiness or fun, and they also experienced a heightened skill performance. So they inexplicably get better at the game as they're playing it. The future implications of this is that the ability to evoke flow through game design can enrich the subjective experience the subjective significance of the game to its players. In other words, a game can be more rewarding and enjoyable for the player in flow, more so than one who is not in flow. The significance is for game designers, as understanding the mechanisms behind flow can explain how games are enjoyable to players, as well as what causes them to engage with a game for long amounts of time. So flow in game design can help designers evoke certain emotional experiences through gameplay, and it can also help them determine how long they want the player to actually be playing the game. So knowing what causes flow in games can impact how games are designed to captivate players. And this not only helps in creating engaging experiences, but it also helps the designer decide how long they want the player to engage with the game for whatever reason they may have. So I have a few data points from Statista that shows a bit more of the rationale behind why I'm choosing this for my deliverable. So this is a graph showing the average hours spent playing video games per week in the US as of December 2024. So out of 10,000 respondents, all aged 18 to 64 years, on average, 28% of respondents reported that they played 1 to 5 hours of games per week. And another significant statistic is that even more so, 18% of respondents played for 6 to 10 hours, and another swath, 10% played for 11 to 15 hours per week. Here's an additional data statistic showing the average daily time spent playing games by age group. So respondents from 15 to 24 years of age on average played games for almost an hour a day back in 2023. Now, the reason why I am showing these points is to showcase how prevalent gaming is as a pastime in the US. And I think the rewarding and engaging and just all around enrapturing nature of flow experiences can at least partly explain why people spend so much time playing video games. Here's an additional statistic showing the preferred or favorite gaming genres among players in certain generations. And I wanted to draw attention particularly to the arcade and action genres that are popular among Gen Alpha and Gen Z, and to a lesser extent, millennials. So this is a bit speculative on my part, but the arcade and action genres generally utilize the skill-based gameplay and immediate feedback mechanisms that can be characteristic of flow activities. And so I think those are at least partly why these games are why these genres are considered so many people's favorites. That also ties into my target audience for my game deliverable, as I want to target youth and young adult video game players from around ages 13 to 35, including both hardcore and casual gamers. And the reason why I chose this target audience, especially based on the data I just presented, is that on average, they tend to spend more time playing video games than most other demographics. And so theoretically, they would be more likely to enter a flow state while playing video games. So my proposed solution is to create a game that shows how the rewarding positive nature of flow makes a game fun enough to sink large amounts of time into. So my process for that is first, the pre-production phase would take place during summer break as well as the first 2 weeks of the fall semester, during which I'll create a game design document. I seek to use this to outline the overall goals of the game, such as the game's concept, its core game mechanics, as well as the graphics and sounds that I want to implement into it. I'll also be using this time for asset creation. I intend on creating custom graphics as far as my own skill allows, but I also anticipate having to use stock and Creative Commons licensed assets for sound and music. I will also be using this game design document to schedule the specifics of the production phase. Speaking of which, the production phase I intend to have take place from weeks 3 to 13 of the fall semester, during which I'll build the game and playtest and iterate on each prototype that I build. I'll be using the Unity 2D game engine, and playtesting will be conducted bi-weekly with friends, family, and friends of family. I will be using fun as a sort of informal metric for feedback, since the subjective experience of fun will be the most important factor to being able to measure flow states in players later on in the project. As far as how long the game will be, I intend on developing 3 levels of gameplay, each of ascending difficulty. So each level is harder than the last. And I intend for it to be about 10 or so minutes of gameplay overall, since I believe that for the scope of my project as well as the game genre I intend on developing for, I think it will be long enough to determine whether uh, a player has reached a sort of flow state. Finally, post-production will take place during weeks 14 and 15 of the fall semester, during which I'll create a questionnaire and release the game um, for the public to play. I'll create a self-report questionnaire adapted from the Game Experience Questionnaire, or the GEQ, which is a tool used in video game research to measure the subjective experiences of its players, such as whether they had fun or whether they were frustrated while playing the game, things like that. I'll be publishing the game on Unity WebGL, which is Unity's own web publishing platform. I'll also be publishing it on itch.io for the game to be played on PC and browser platforms. I'll have players report their flow experiences after playing the game via the questionnaire, and I will have these 2 weeks to allow for time for players to play the game and to respond. So here are some examples of the deliverable I envision as of right now. So as I want to create a simple 2D action game, these 3 screenshots from Speedrunners, Hollow Knight, and Super Hexagon sort of showcase the type of action-based, uh, kind of high-paced gameplay that I want to achieve for my game. And then here are some additional screenshots from Mega Man X and Celeste that showcase some of the more aesthetic aspects. I plan on having pixelated graphics just as a sort of aesthetic preference, but this also showcases some 2D action platformer gameplay that I also want to achieve with my deliverable. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and yes, thank you.